Welcome to Game News for June 15, 2013. We're your hosts for this exciting excavation into E3. I'm Carefully Crazy Chris. This is the manically mysterious Mike.
Hello.
And the gravitonically groovy Grover.
Dude!
And a bit of a different show this week because the week's news is entirely focused on E3. We'll start with the one exception. So despite how hand-in-hand Gearbox and 3D Realms were at the launch of Duke Nukem Forever, things have definitely changed as 3D Realms, the original Duke Nukem folks, filed a breach of contract lawsuit for $2 million in royalties and advances. It sounds like people are just kind of upset that Duke Nukem Forever didn't make more money than it did. And so they're looking for a way of making the money they feel that they lost, despite the fact that if it wasn't for Gearbox, 3D Realms probably would not exist right now. So
that's true.
I don't know. Pick your sides, but it sounds like a bit of a mess. E3, for the people out there that don't know, whoever you may be, is basically the Super Bowl of gaming expos. It's when everybody gathers their best stuff, their best surprises, and tries to make their best case for the entire world's worth of games for the next year. And this was probably one of the bigger ones we've had in a long time, not only because of the new consoles, but because of all the controversies around so much stuff, plus a lot of announcements. So I don't know exactly how to pursue this, because this is kind of a roundtable discussion in itself. And here's another problem. Grover didn't catch any of it. He's a PC guy, so I understand why you missed it.
I had trouble accessing computers this week. It's called my broken piece of chair.
Oh, well, that's true. And it is like 6 hours of just the main videos, not even the rest of the stuff that happened in E3.
Yep.
Yeah, I feel your pain, dude. So
this arcade is so comfortable.
Microsoft kicked off the conferences on the big Monday E3 began, definitely digging into focusing on the games that they didn't at the unveiling. There was no single speaker on the floor when the Metal Gear Solid 5 started off with its rather impressive look at Kiefer Sutherland's take on Solid Snake and his new adventures that included Horth stealth, and some great visuals. That texturing was just amazing. Some of that was photorealistic, and we've been saying that for years, but this was truly impressive. And we didn't really talk about it before, but sheesh, that Xbox One is a boring-looking box. Probably the least inspired design I've seen since the Philips CDI.
Oh, wow.
The 3DO wasn't all that great either, but at least it had the little cylinders on the end of it that made it kind of look like a castle or something. This is just a box that you'd expect your DVD player, your VHS out of the mid-90s to look like.
I guess they spent all their time and effort into seeing how much they could piss off players.
And they also revealed a new, slimmer version of the Xbox 360, as well as mentioning a new Xbox Live program that will start offering 2 free games per month till at least the launch of the Xbox One and possibly further, mentioning Halo 3 and Assassin's Creed 2 as the first 2 games. So you're going to be high profile, but they're also going to be games that most hardcore 360 owners probably already have. Me, oddly enough, not being one of them, but I also have a core system, so downloading 2 games a month, that would fill that hard drive up in about 1 month. Though it's my understanding that while the Xbox Live accounts will carry over to the Xbox One, this does not mean these games will play on the new system, so you'll definitely have to keep a hold of your Xbox 360, folks. They dug straight into the lineup of 360 games, which isn't a bad thing to do, kind of build up the show to your Xbox One. But the Xbox 360 exclusive version of World of Tanks? I mean, I understand the game is seriously popular, but really? That's what you're going to blow people away with?
World of Tanks. Yep,
World of
that'll
Tanks.
get it.
Indie title Max, The Curse of Brotherhood was then shown. It reminded me a lot of the old Heart of Darkness game, so it was kind of nice and to see do something different, even though a lot of people may say, oh, this looks like a colorful version of Limbo. But, where do you think Limbo came from? Dark Souls 2, which I would have thought to be the fan favorite, but I guess it is kind of a game with more of a big cult following than it was a gigantic hit franchise. I don't know, though. Yeah. So, the Xbox One's games start beginning with Rise, Son of Rome, which looked gorgeous, but the gameplay looked absolutely horrible. I don't know if you agree with me on this, but thankfully it looks to be a special scripted tutorial with a lot of stuff cut out specifically for the show floor, but it was way too much cutscene, way too much, isn't this cool finisher moves like every 3 seconds and a lot of button mashing. Give me a button mash like Dynasty Warriors with these graphics? With these graphics, and I'd be happier than what I was looking at. Because this looked like a really sore attempt at like a combination of God of War and Lord of the Rings games. It's just...
Was this the Microsoft?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't watch that.
Oh, I'll keep that.
Yeah, I only watched the PlayStation one. After the stuff that I'd been hearing about Microsoft's console, I'm not interested. Yeah, I was like, they're not going to say anything that's going to make me think that their DRM-heavy approach is acceptable, so...
Well, here is one game that actually has people excited, and if it wasn't for all the warnings of the copyright, the next one would have been a bigger surprise, but there it was, the next-gen Killer Instinct, and while I was never the biggest Killer Instinct fan, I felt I should have been more excited than I was. I mean, I'm a fighting game fanatic, it's just the look wasn't pleasing to me. The trailer was really sloppy, though I saw some extra footage later elsewhere that made the game look a lot better than first impressions, but it reminded me of like Clay Fighter or something. The characters look outdated.
They've always had that kind of Clay Fighter look to them, but
whenever I think of Killer Instinct, I just want it to be 2D. I can't tolerate being 3D.
And it does look like what they're doing. They're doing more of the Killer Instinct 1 approach than the Killer Instinct 2, which did kind of allow a little more free roam, and it didn't work too well.
I mean, I don't mind if, you hit somebody and the screen kind of moves when they're... I've seen those kind of games, but when you got to do that 3D running around and crap, like Tekken Tag was the one that I was like,
Then you had Sunset Overdrive, which it would be the first of many open-world action MMOs from the show. I mean, between the action MMOs and the racing games, it's like, if you're into either one of those, this show was definitely for you, the entire E3, because there's a ton of them. But this was a strange one, because it was like a combination of Bulletstorm with its combo-ish type of stuff, and it didn't show any gameplay, it was just the trailer, so people are just kind of conjecturing. But Bulletstorm, DayZ, and Borderlands. So it looked like a Nickelodeon joined up with Team Fortress to make a zombie version of Brink or something. It was like a parkour first-person shooter-looking thing with giant orange zombie blobs. It looked like it had some interesting ideas for it. It's just...
rotting rot.
Yeah. Speaking of those racing games, Forza Motorsport 5 popped in with a shameless McLaren rising from the stage. But one of the many racing games that appeared at the show, and it seems to be one of the prettiest ones, and if that player-driven, no pun intended, AI is true as it was given, it will be a very impressive addition to the genre. Future genres even, like first-person shooters and stuff in the future, because what it does is every time you jump into the game to play, the system is recording the data that you use to drive your car with. And so it programs like a virtual self of you into the cloud so that other people will start playing basically you even though you're not there. So all of this old crap about the computers taking these turns perfectly and all that type of stuff, that will be gone. The AI cars will make mistakes, they'll be aggressive, they'll be defensive. So if it does what they're claiming it does, this is a big deal for the future of video games, just right there. It wasn't on a cloud like
Forza
this.
Motorsport?
Yep.
Awesome. I actually like their games.
Quantum Break. We saw them at the unveiling, but the whole TV meets video game premise seems just kind of like a bad idea to me, like a step backwards. But I do like the take on the time distortions that they have going, like it's almost this catastrophic event where just these chunks of things will just stop in time or fast forward or backward, and it's like an epidemic sort of thing. So that's a really creative way for the beginning of an apocalypse. I've never seen that done before, so I do like that part of it. Quick snippets of D4, not to be related to D2, which was a long time ago, but it's looking to be like an Inception-like version of The Walking Dead, kind of a murder mystery with some weird stuff going on, but it does the Walking Dead kind of playstyle. Project Spark came up, which looks pretty similar to Little Big Planet in the way that you can kind of create what you want to do. The show demo looked way too scripted, but that's show demos for you, so it has a lot of potential from what I've seen of the trailers. There was like Space Invaders 1 minute, Marble Madness the next, you had these 3D platformers the next, so it looks pretty, it looks like they've got some possibilities. They got into the Xbox One mechanics a little more, like the online chats and the quick game in and out. And you okay there, Mike?
Yeah, I was trying to. This chair is being stupid. I'm starting to have the same issues Grover's having.
Oh no, not another chair.
Quick game in and outs, play a game while waiting for lobbies, Twitter feeds,
soon we will sit on the floor.
Smart glasses and stuff like that. All interesting trinkets, but nothing that's really going to be a console seller for most of us, I think. Panzer Dragoon's spiritual successor, with a broken sound trailer, I might add, but it popped up with Crimson Dragon, and it looked like a great return to form, especially for Star Fox fans who haven't had a decent Star Fox game for a long time, as long as they don't mind trading in their R-Wing for like a medieval fantasy. Capcom, who's really only had one big surprise for the entirety of E3, had their big surprise here, and that was Dead Rising 3. Impressive on the graphics side, but Xbox One exclusive with MMO properties, so apparently a lot of people can play this together. I don't know how many is limited to. They didn't really get into a whole lot of that from what I saw of the show. And something that might be disturbing to a lot of people, it seems like it lost most, if not all of its humor. It's gone a lot more serious now. So that's actually good to some people. So Witcher 3 popped in to talk about its impressive looking game being fully open world now. And then the one that likely got the first-person shooters fans the most excited, and that was a very tasty look at Battlefield 4. Despite a lengthy sound problem at the beginning that had Patrick Soderlund actually really uncomfortable. I mean, I don't know exactly how long it was. I didn't time it, but it seemed like 5 minutes of him basically standing there looking at the screen, waiting for the thing to pop on. A lot of problems at the Microsoft show. And he almost walked off the stage at one point saying that we'll bring it back later, and he seemed kind of annoyed when he said it, but he got dragged back on, and they got it working. And once it did, everyone seemed really happy with the gameplay, the graphics, and some very satisfying sound design. And then some indie gameness from Sword and Sorcery creators they showed below. Then an unnamed spy game that was shown briefly from Black Tusk Studios, which has been all of the secret rage at Microsoft, like these guys are going to be the next big thing, the next big Bungie, and so on. Then tried to surprise everybody with a low-key introduction, speaking of Bungie, of the return of Halo, which the trailer was kind of pretty and all. I do not know if it was running on the actual engine itself. If so, that was impressive sand and fabric fixes there at the beginning. They were talking about have a lot of big features with the cloud, the dedicated servers for it. It's going to be the first Halo to run at 60 frames per second, and of course the Spielberg TV show they mentioned again. And then closed out the show with Titanfall, a game that reminded me of a seriously overhauled Battlefield 2142 with mechs and guns and explosions everywhere. It was a nice long run demo. All in all, with several stream camera fumbles and the multiple sound fumbles, it wasn't really a horrible show, and they did prove that the Xbox One is going to be a beast enough to play some very good looking games. And with Smart Glass is basically going to be Microsoft's answer to the Wii U's controller and the way the Vita is going to be used for PlayStation 4. And then they mentioned the $500 price tag, which kind of made people grit their teeth a little bit. Now again, it doesn't sound like any of you guys saw EA's or Ubisoft's, so I'll just go over them really quickly because they were largely about the games. EA's conference came next and was showing everything pretty much for the Xbox One and PlayStation 4, not so much any older stuff, but it's presumably some of these are going to be for older system and PC too. So a lot of sports games, but we already knew about this, and bragging, and pretty rightfully so, about their new Frostbite 3 engine, which was going to be running most of the games that were showing. Dragon Age Inquisition, aka Dragon Age 3 for some people, was finally shown. More of the Crimson Dragon was shown, this time with sound. Need for Speed's Rivals, which had a really nice, flashy trailer running for it. The rain effects were just gorgeous on it, I do have to say that. A teaser for Star Wars Battlefront. We knew it was happening the moment we knew that DICE was going to start working with the Star Wars franchise, so Peggle 2, which for the Peggle fanatics out there, and I know you're out there, that's a big deal to them. Now, this one was a little more controversial. Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare, and it had really mixed reactions. It was basically a third-person shooter mixing exactly what it sounds like, Plants vs. Zombies, with Call of Duty.
What?
But allegedly, this is not Plants vs. Zombies 2. This is just a side project that EA put together, so the classic tower defense style of Plants vs. Zombies is going to continue, so I think that freaked out a lot of people that this is the sequel. No, I want my game back.
Yeah.
So that's supposedly a separate entity. We didn't actually hear anything about PvZ2, but yeah. They also showed a free-to-play MMORPG for the PlayStation Vita called Destiny of Spirits, among a bunch of other things, and cannot forget that I believe they ended the show with a much-anticipated open-world Mirror's Edge 2, so that excited a lot of people. And Ubisoft, yep, then they popped in with Rocksmith, and an intro with Alice in Chains' guitarist Jerry Cantrell to play a little bit before the rest of the show got started. So no particular order here. There were updates for South Park Stick of Truth. The incomparable Watch Dogs had some more gameplay going on. Had a lot more casual niche titles like Trials Fusion for the console and Trials Frontier for the mobile. Now that's the little stunt kind of excite bike.
Trials.
I don't know, could you call it Angry Birds
it's
almost?
Kind of like a dirt bike physics engine.
Yeah.
It's basically what it is.
And there's a lot of people that love it, so I can see why they did.
I am one of those. I love it. So.
And speaking about odd games people love, Just Dance 2014 was announced. And okay, this one was another controversial one. Rabbids Invasion, the TV show. Now, a lot of people may or may not remember the Rabbids. They were kind of a spin-off of the Rayman series, and the little minions from Despicable Me took a lot from these guys. They have their own TV show that's coming out soon, but it has these interactive segments where kids can like point at stuff and shoot eggs and then yell really loudly at the TV screen to make... It does not change the outcome of anything. It's just for like points that just show Action Max. This is the first thing that came to mind. I know that Action Max was a video game that was basically a VHS player with a Duck Hunt style gun where you shot little targets that showed up on the VHS tape and it kept score. This is what it looked like to me. Welcome to the next gen gaming. But hey, some Mighty Quest for the Epic Luke. I am your father. Mighty Quest for Epic Loot, a Facebook-style RPG. It's not really Facebook, but Rayman Legends, which looked really good. The Crew, which I've heard this term used, but people are telling me this is the equivalent of a Burnout MMO, which is kind of cool sounding, actually. And a full long look at Assassin's Creed Black Flag, which showed up at just about every one of the shows in some form or the other. It is one of the big franchises lately. But the show's capper was appropriately enough Tom Clancy's The Division. Yet another action MMO, but this one had a ton of promise. Infamous, with a seriously hyper-detailed post-pandemic world that was left to rot with survivors looting and questing for survival. So it's kind of like DayZ without the zombies, only it's really super urban. Okay, that leaves us with the last of the big conferences, and I remember the days when these were spread out over several days, not just all in one day, but fewer companies did conferences this year. I mean, Capcom hasn't done any in a while, Konami hasn't done any in a while, Namco hasn't done any in a while, so these four were basically the only ones. So after a 20-minute delay, it finally began with an almost nauseating montage of flashed game graphics and various tunes. Some of them were actually pretty obnoxious and other stuff. And then Jack Trenton walked out on stage and things got actually rolling. He started talking about the future of Vita with Destiny of Spirits, which was shown at the Ubisoft show, Counter-Spy, Batman Arkham Origins, Doki Doki Universe, Tearaway, and of course Killzone Mercenary, which apparently people in the audience were excited about, with the HD versions of God of War 1 and 2, Flower, Final Fantasy X and X-2, and Dead Nation, plus a Walking Dead and the sequel 400 Days are also going to be coming out soon for it in a single package. Then went on about the Vita PS4 connectivity, and again, I stress that everybody is basically copying the Wii U controller, but why not? It's not a bad idea if you can afford it. So, PS3 showcasing. They showed some more of The Last of Us, which is already out by then, but I guess you can never show too much of a good thing. Puppeteer, Rain, and a very different look at Beyond Two Souls. In the past, it looked very suspense-driven, and this one went all military combat on us. I didn't know that she was Special Forces at one point. Okay. And then Gran Turismo 6, which was far from looking bad, but I bet you Under the Hood is a really technical game, and the car selection is probably still one of the most gigantic, so you probably cannot go wrong with Gran Turismo 6. And of course Batman Arkham Origins, but they mentioned that we'll get exclusive costumes for Batman, including the Nightfall outfit, and the one that kind of got people giggling, the 1960s Batman skin. A little Adam West for you. And then the PS4 stuff finally began by showing us the design, which is the first time they've actually shown it, which is a little strange considering the unveiling was, February? So while it's not great, it's certainly not bad either. Certainly one of the more stylized of the three next-gen systems. And so began the boxing match in truth. Sony Pictures chairman Michael Linton popped in to talk about exclusive TV shows built for the PlayStation Network to battle the whole TV thing with Xbox One, by reminding that all of the Hulu stuff, all the Netflix, Flickster, Redbox, TV, movie, music software all over the place are still accessible for the PlayStation 4, so they spent a little too long on it, if you ask me, but, you know, if you're trying to drive home a point that, so President Shu Yoshida, he got onto the games section rolling by Santa Monica Studios' new 1886, The Order. Steampunk ahoy is what I say about that. This looks
sort
like
of reminded me of Hellgate London.
Some Killzone Shadowfall, another racing game, Cold Drive Club. But as I understood it, they were talking about it later that one of the PlayStation Plus things, and Drive Club is actually going to be free for the people that get into the PlayStation Plus stuff. So take that into consideration at least. Infamous, Second Son, Knack, which they showed at the unveiling, and probably one of the less impressive games to me so far, but certainly nothing wrong with it. And remember that old man face demo that they showed at the unveiling? Well, it finally has a game as they released it with a humorous trailer for it called Dark Sorcerer.
I thought it was just a tech demo.
No, it had a name to it.
It was supposed to be like a movie series / tech demo that uses PlayStation graphics to show, how expressive they can make faces. I showed this video to Sydney, and she's going to kill me for saying this, but she thought that the CGI-generated Dark Sorcerer guy was actually a real actor.
That was some fantastic work there.
Yeah, and I think that's what the point was, is like, hey, this is how real you can make stuff look.
Well, the set, too, when they pulled back from the camera thing, there was just something about it that, wait a minute, this is still CG, right? I mean, that was kind of impressive, that it pulled me out of the graphics long enough to make me double-check that I was still watching the same thing I was watching a second ago. Well done. But yeah, I thought it was an actual game. It's a tech demo. I get things wrong. Some other indie game goodness with Transistor, along with other faces like Don't Starve, Mercenary Kings, Octodad, Secret Ponchos, Outlast, Ray's Dead. Ray, like the name, kind of clever. Oddworld Inhabitants. Remember when the Oddworld folks hated the PlayStation 2? And Galaxy. And then the big stuff really started pouring in with Final Fantasy 15, once known as Final Fantasy 13 Versus. Looked better than ever, and quite interesting, though it seems to really have more in common with like Kingdom Hearts or Dirge of Cerberus than anything Final Fantasy. So I don't know how to feel about it having the Final Fantasy name.
I thought it looked pretty good.
Oh yeah, I liked it too when I saw those trailers.
Yeah, after how disappointing 13 was, this one looks to be a little bit more less linear. I mean, it's probably going to be linear in some fashion.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you have to jump off of this thing and you have to go this way, and it makes it look more open. It's not, you're not walking down a narrow corridor.
Mm-hmm. It looks a lot more cinematic, if nothing else. Of course, it may have just been the scenes they were showing, but things were happening because they were exciting, not because you were going from point A to point B for the next cutscene. So
exactly.
And speaking of Kingdom Hearts 3 is official, finally. And then Assassin's Creed Black Flag showed up again with a PS4 version of Watch Dogs, which looks gorgeous. Elder Scrolls Online, and the Just Cause creators taking on Mad Max. Here's my childhood showing up in it.
Right.
Wow. I knew what it was the moment I saw the back end of that car. I know what this is. They're actually making a game again.
When I saw it, I was like, that can't be. No way. And then they showed the logo, and I was like, oh, it is!
And then the word began. Jack Tritton's return, Mike knows what's coming, promising more exclusives than Microsoft have been so far, followed up with a blatant attack on the used game controversies, absolutely igniting the crowd. Trading, lending, resale, all of that stuff. And just when the cheers and chanting stopped, he said, in addition, PlayStation 4 disc-based games don't need to be connected online to play. And it began all over again, even
the whole time, that grin that he had on his face.
Oh, yes. He knew they won right then.
Oh yeah.
Every other line was just another cheer for something. Even when the cheer started dying off and he was talking about PlayStation Plus, which largely hinting at that's the only way the cloud saves are going to work, and it sounds like they're going to kind of go Xbox Live-ish with the multiplayer, that the only way you're going to get most multiplayer functionality is going to be paying for it. But still, it's priced at $5. That's not bad a month. I mean,
yeah, and
Xbox
you get free
12,
games.
Yeah, you get the free games.
I think Xbox is 10.
It's not a bad deal by any means. I'm not knocking Xbox Live's approach. It's just, here's the alternative for cheaper now.
Yeah, with more benefits. And you do not have to have PlayStation Plus to do things like Netflix and Hulu, which you do for Microsoft.
Mm-hmm. And it all capped off with a big, long, 12-minute plus look at Destiny, which, Bungie and Sony, people go nuts for that. So one more reason to get the crowd cheering big time with the $400 reveal at the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
That is $100 less than the Xbox One, and only $50 more than the current Wii U price, though I'm feeling a price drop come fall for the Wii U. It just feels like they have to at this point. So yeah, Wii U. Nintendo didn't actually have a conference about this, so Nintendo's decision not to have one and to stick only to Nintendo Direct and the show floor for announcements, it looked like that might be a damaging idea, but I've heard a lot of arguments since then, and I completely agree with them. It was a great idea for them to pull themselves out of that whole boxing match between Sony and Microsoft and focus away from their system itself that can't possibly compete with these two monsters, and instead on the games. So we had reveals and trailers and demos of all kinds of stuff that they've been promising for a while, and for the Wii U, like Mario Kart 8, Super Mario 3D World, an impressive-looking Pikmin 3, new Super Luigi U, so you're Luigi, Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, which is a nice throwback to the old Donkey Kong Country still, Wii Party U, which is basically a spiritual successor to the Mario Party games, Wii Fit U, alright, I get it, and of course the new Super Smash Bros., which is probably going to take up the rest of our show here, but
it's gonna have Mega Man in it!
It doesn't seem to have a complete name yet. I know Killer Instinct is basically one of those reboot things, but Super Smash Bros., it seems like it's a tentative name. I don't think it's official that it's like Super Smash Bros. 4 or anything.
I think since it's going to be released for the 3DS and the Wii U at the same time, and they're basically the same game, I think it's going to be called Super Smash Bros. Wii U and Super Smash Bros. 3DS.
I would not doubt that in the least.
Yep.
And we'll get back to them for a second. I'll just go ahead and finish off the rest of this. So there was other goodies like Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker HD, Mario and Sonic at the 2004 Olympic Winter Games, and of course Bayonetta 2, which has caused a bit of controversy because they were going to be exclusive for the Wii U, and there's a lot of console owners that weren't happy about that. And really lots more like the lovely big open fantasy world meets mech world of X, I think is what the name of it is.
It's just called X.
Yeah, or Cross, hard to say. But it looked really, really nice, especially for a Wii U game. 3DS hasn't been left out either, as it's getting Pokemon X and Y, which we've known about for a long time. Zelda A Link Between Worlds.
A Link Between Worlds looks like a sequel or some kind of direct tie-in to A Link to the Past. I want to make that clear.
Didn't they call one A Link to the Past 2 there for a long time?
I think so. I'm pretty sure they called, I think so.
Mario and Luigi Dream Team, and the other version of the 3DS, the 3DS version rather, of the Super Smash Bros. One is getting like this black outline so you can actually see it better, so wasn't really sold on it at first, and I thought, keep in mind how small that screen is, Chris. It's kind of hard to keep track of stuff sometimes, so having those outlines is going to be a huge help. So they mentioned some of the new characters. Mega Man, that was actually a surprise. I figured they would hold that closer to their chest till later.
I wasn't surprised to see him in the game. I was surprised that he was announced so early. Because they didn't announce Sonic until pretty late.
And that was another thing. They revealed quite a bit. Not only is it, I forgot the count, I think it's 9 or 10 of past characters. Pit's making a comeback. A lot of them have been redesigned. Pit looks more like his self from the latest game he was in. Bowser isn't quite crouched over so much. He's more standing up straight. And then the other two new characters. The villager from Animal Crossing. At first I thought, why? At the very least, get somebody people really relate to, like KK Slider or the little Tanuki guy.
Tom Nook.
Thank you. Somebody like that. But still, when they were on a different video, they were showing exactly what the character did. There's some interesting original stuff there, like the ability to kind of have this parry attack where you will grab people's objects. So it doesn't matter if it's like something thrown at them or if it's like they're missiles. You stick it in your pocket and you can use it later. I can kind of get behind that. And his whole trick is all these different items from the Animal Crossing world. I don't know if it was a taunt or what. There's this spot where he basically plants this little sproutling, waters it, it turns into a tree, and then he knocks it down with an axe. And I could have swore I saw in one of the trailers somebody getting hit by the tree when it came down. So I have no idea what that is.
I think it's one of those things where you can plant a tree and then wait to chop it down, maybe.
Just kind of setting up a trap sort of thing. And then the Wii Fit instructor. It makes sense. Wii Fit is one of the biggest selling games the Wii ever had. So as far as recognizability, done. Secondly, her moveset is quite a bit different simply because it's very gymnastics. It's very mobile. It's like Chic up a notch. But at the same time, they're so kooky and campy because she's doing these yoga moves. That and the fact that it's a female character, which Smash Brothers desperately needs more of. I mean, I'm not saying that there has to be perfect balance or anything. It's just, I think variety is a good thing. And this helps exactly with that because she stands out compared to so many others. She's like a mannequin. She barely has a face. So it took me a while. It was like the villager. I had to think about it before I thought it was an actual good idea because when I think of characters they could be adding, everybody was begging for. And you know what? They probably still will not have Mike Jones or Crystal, but we can hope. But Mega Man, who plays really, really different than I would have thought. All his smash attacks and stuff are actually his abilities from other Robot Masters. I get that. But his main attacks are basically a projectile move the entire time. It makes sense, but it's strange.
I think they didn't want to make what people would eventually say is just kind of a clone of the Marvel vs. Capcom Mega Man.
Or Samus.
Yeah. His regular attack, like you said, is just a little, I'm shooting lemons! You know, if you've seen that video. It's just his little, non-charged shots. It doesn't look like they travel the whole screen. It looks like they disappear after 4 or 5 links of characters. His forward smash attack is the charge shot, which I thought made sense too. I honestly thought that Mega Man's charge shot would be just holding down thinking about it the way they did it, I'm like, I actually approve. So
because the smashes have always been kind of charge moves to begin with, so
yeah.
So the longer you charge, the bigger the blast. Now the 3DS and Wii U versions do have some differences. They will apparently have both identical rosters, so there's not going to be any exclusive characters to one or the other, and Sakurai gave no priority for any Namco characters to appear in Smash Brothers. It doesn't mean it won't happen, it's just, it does not sound like it was something that just because Namco is doing so much for the games engine and so on in the design, that they're having any special allowances for any of their characters. Yeah. So, I should also make this point too before I go on with the differences. I know they're trying to be flashier with the attacks, now have more of these motion swings like you'd see in Soul Calibur and stuff, so there's more going on, there's actually a lot there, but it just didn't make me go wow like I expected it to. But on that same note, I have to hand it to Namco that it doesn't look bad. It looks like Smash Brothers. So these people that had nothing to do with any of the past iterations look like they're going to do a decent job with it. But yeah, Wii U versions and the 3DS versions apparently have some sort of connectivity, but you will not actually be able to play each other because the stages are going to be completely different between the two games. This is the bigger difference between them.
I'm just looking forward to it.
Yes.
I can't wait to play Mega Man.
It is the only Wii U game so far that's made me go, ooh. I mean, Pikmin 3, I like the looks of it, but it's not really a game that I think I would play, but I would love to watch. I'm weird. And poor Grover, I think he fell asleep.
Nope, I'm here.
Oh, figured you got so comfy in that bed, you just... Later, guys. You got this handled. So yeah, that was a big chunk of E3. I hope this extra long version of Game News wasn't too long for you guys to be watching, and all these games are going to be more and more news in the future. We're obviously going to be covering all this, so it's a lot to take in one show.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for sticking with us, and we'll catch you next week.
See you next time.
Goodbye.
By the way, that was Game News for June 15, 2003.